This is just going to be me ranting about the James Gunn problem with Superman. I know I don't have a fanciful background or anything like this. I haven't done one of these long video YouTube essays in quite a while, but here we go. So this weekend is James Gunn's release of Superman, and I don't know if I'm going to see it. I don't know if I'm going to see it for multiple reasons, just because of everything that I have read about and everything that I've seen has just turned me off from even watching it. I'll probably wait till it comes on streaming, but just with everything that has happened with the DCU, from the DCEU, and everything in between, it just is a rough, ugly road of where we got to. Because I'll just kind of do an overview of what happened with the DCEU. Is that Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman didn't do that well at the box office, even though it was a profitable movie. And instead of DC sticking to their guns and wanting Zack Snyder to finish his vision, they instead try to course correct and make it all marvelly and then hire Joss Whedon, and obviously that's how we got Justice League. But they used Zack Snyder's family tragedy, I'm not going to state what happened, but just look it up about what happened, and they used that to oust him. And then a few years later, The Rock comes in and is like, listen, I'll do Black Adam, but let's bring back Henry Cavill as Superman, even though that didn't make sense because Black Adam is the main villain of Shazam. So why would they bring back Superman? But either way, it was an excuse just to get Henry Cavill back into the tights. And that failed, mainly because of The Rock, let's be honest. And so then WB was like, well, we didn't actually have Cavill sign a contract, so we pushed him out. So again, those are two strikes, and it's a rough and ugly road. And then they decided to reboot everything within a 2-year period, which is insane. The advice that I would have given Warner Brothers and DC is to wait 10 years. 10 years, have everything clean slate, don't hire anybody, don't do anything, because how can I miss you when you're never gone? And you know, you could hire James Gunn or whoever you want to redo everything, but again, it's such whiplash. Literally going here is like, oh, now we're gonna go there, now we're gonna go here, and it's just like, let's just stick to one course. Because say what you will about Marvel, but they're still sticking to their course. When the Marvels, which I think was probably the most devastating box office loss for Marvel, they didn't, push the reboot button, and they were like, you know what, let's just redo it all again. Let's just do Iron Man over again. No, they're still sticking with their guns. They're still gonna do Fantastic Four, and there's Doomsday still on the way. So still, respect to Marvel for seeing the vision through. Which brings us to current date, and I can't believe that the most controversial movie so far this year is a Superman movie. A Superman movie, not anything having to do with sex or gender or politics or anything like it, even though there are apparently some politics in this movie. And so David Zaslav found it in his being to hire the person to give the keys to the DC kingdom whose first introduction into talking about Superman was saying that Superman had a poop fetish. If you don't believe me, go watch the first season of Peacemaker. And I think James Gunn is a very competent director, but when he's just, it's very niche when he's very competent, because whether it's Guardians, whether it's the Suicide Squad, whether it's Peacemaker, it's kind of all the same. It's a bunch of ragtag people that are given a mission, they got to do a bunch of things, and there's cute little critters on the way. For instance, you have Rocket Raccoon and Groot in the Guardians movies, then you have King Shark in the Suicide Squad, and then you have Eagly in Peacemaker. And that's obviously where we get brought to Superman now. He just had to include a dog like Crypto. Like, it's dangling keys in front of a child, is what I'm trying to say. Like, Crypto might be a cute dog, but it's literally just the same James Gunn formula again, but this time it's Superman. Before the film was even released, it was fracturing the fan base because Snyder's vision was ripped away. There's like these pictures that I see online is that, Cavill handing the torch over to Cornsweat, and it's like, not really, the torch was kind of ripped out of Snyder's hand and thrusted into James Gunn's hands. Now, I'm sure James Gunn and Zack Snyder behind the scenes, they're friends. They did voices on Rick and Morty. I'm sure they're friends, but from our point of view that wanted Zack Snyder to finish his vision, because trust me, like, I liked Man of Steel, not really a fan of Batman vs Superman. I need to go back and rewatch it, but I loved Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was almost like something clicked in my brain of like, oh wow, now I get it. And I wanted him to finish his vision of what to have. If they could have done that, if they could have given Zack Snyder one movie to finish up everything, it would have probably been profitable. But instead, they decided to double down and release a Shazam sequel that failed, a Batgirl movie that will never see the light of day, the Blue Beetle, a Flash movie that stunk, and an Aquaman movie that didn't make its money back either. I bet if you combine all of their budgets, it would probably equal or probably lesser than what the next Justice League movie would have gone into production with. And from what I've read about this new Superman movie is that it's essentially Gunn getting away with things that Zack Snyder was chastised with years ago. The fact that the city is getting destroyed, it's overstuffed with characters, and this is going to be spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, just click away from this video. That this Superman ends up killing someone. It's a clone of himself and everything like that, but if we're talking about Superman, he would have some sympathy and empathy for this clone and try and save him. When I saw the media blitz for this Superman movie, it turned me off from everything because all the clips of Superman is of him yelling. He's yelling about how he wants to be a good person. He's yelling at Lois, which was a huge turnoff. It's like, I've never seen Superman act like this in any iteration. And then also the clip of him bursting into Lex's office asking about the dog, and not even in an intimidating way. It was like a little kid who got his ball taken away. He's like marching to his parents, like, where's the dog? That's not how Superman would react. Lex is in a high building. You know what Superman would do? He would literally fly up to the building, his arms crossed, and, you know, be like, are you Lex Luthor? We need to talk. Because apparently this Superman has never met Lex Luthor yet. And so that's what he would do. He would be calm, cool, collected, even if things weren't going his way, and he would try to get it done to the best of his ability. But instead, no, from all the reviews and from all the things I've seen, Superman just seems to be an impetulant child who complains about wanting to do the right thing. And again, it's like, I don't know, like at least with Henry Cavill's Superman, like you got the motivation of why he wants to do the right thing, you know, because he is this Midwestern boy from Kansas who was raised by salt of the earth people, and he wants to do the right thing. You know, his father from Krypton inspired him, you know, like Jor-El with all these great monologues about helping the people of Earth to strive to be better. And speaking of Jor-El, in this new movie, it turns out that Jor-El is essentially Space Diddy. That he really sent Superman to Earth, and it's, you know, whether or not Lex Luthor garbled a message, but within the movie of Superman, there is a message from Jor-El that gets garbled up that Superman can't quite translate. And so then it later turns out Lex is like, oh wait, I actually ciphered the message, and then they play it, and apparently Jor-El is telling Superman to go and conquer Earth and to turn all the women into his harem. It's some really weird stuff that would literally shatter Superman's world. If it turned out that instead of his father sending him for a noble purpose, that it was essentially to be Genghis Khan of Earth. That's a huge lore change. And apparently in the movie, it's just brushed over. It's just like it creates some friction a little bit, and then they just forget about it. That would shatter Superman's world because he's wearing the Kryptonian symbol. He's like, you know what? I think I was sent here for a reason and everything to help people and yada yada yada. And Ma and Pa Kent also back that up. But like that would, I was trying to think of a comparison. That would essentially be like if Batman's parents turned out to be mob bosses. Like his parents actually died in a mob hit. It wasn't just them innocently walking down a dark alley. It just turned out that, you know, it was a mob hit put on by Falcone or whatever. That would shatter Batman's world. To find out that the criminals that he is beating up and everything like that are the same criminals that his parents were. Do you get what I'm saying? There's been scenes that have leaked online of him flying and everything like that. All of the special effects look bad in the movie to me. That flying scene that was kind of controversial where he's like flying through the snow, I guess to or from the Fortress of Solitude, it just looks like someone took a PNG image of David Cornsweat's face and just put it onto a 3D model of him flying. So his face never moves. Meanwhile, counterbalance that with Henry Cavill's Man of Steel, whenever he's flying for the first time, he has this excitement on his face because he's flying. Oh my gosh, he's flying. Like, I don't know, I'm not saying that David Cornsweat should just emote every single time he flies, but it looks too still and everything. And the special effects in other areas looks great. The kaiju that I saw in the previews, that looked fine. But from what I've seen, the flying and fighting sequences just look weird. And it's just bad because the flying sequences in Man of Steel look great, and that is a 13-year-old movie, and this isn't much better. So special effects have either not improved since 2013 or they picked the wrong special effects house to deal with. And apparently the special effects house are the same people that did The Flash. Because there have been previews of him fighting on that football field where he just looks so rubbery and it's like Gumby. And it's like the heads of DC, when they saw this, how come none of them stepped in and they were like, this is not a good look? And especially that suit. That suit that David Cornsweet, now David Cornsweet, from what I've heard, he does put on a good Superman. That's what I've heard in the reviews. Like, despite the script challenges and the pacing of the movie and everything, David Cornsweet is a decent Superman. That they think that he could be a good Superman given the right director and given the right script. But that suit that he's in is atrocious. It's baggy. All the behind the scenes pics just look goofy. It just looks like loose pajamas made out of old basketballs. And I've just heard that Superman is just demeaned throughout the whole movie. That Green Lantern calls him a wuss. There's a hashtag called super shit that he gets really upset over. And then at the end of the movie, Supergirl, as she's getting Krypto, she calls Superman a bitch. It might just be in a catty way, but is this really a movie you want to take your kids to? You know, where Superman is just demeaned? That doesn't scream Superman to me. I don't think Gunn understands Superman, or he always tries to, and this is something I thought of as well. Whenever there's like a straight-laced character or anything like that, with whether it's Superman or somebody else, he always tries to take that character and sort of warp and perverse them. Because let's look at Superman. Superman, he changed the backstory of Jor-El, and now he's had people just talking down to Superman and making fun of him. And then there's a scene, a clip that I saw where he's fighting with Ultraman, and Ultraman kicks him in the balls. I'm gonna repeat that again. Superman gets kicked in the balls and falls back down to Earth with this Looney Tunes like bug eyes, and he falls back down to Earth. This is not a love letter to the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner movies. This is a ransom note. When I saw that clip, I'm like, how can anyone watch this Superman movie and think that the director and writer, who are the same person, it's all James Gunn, has any reverence for the character? That's not what would happen. Even if that were in, whether it was the Reeve movies or the Snyder movies, it would be very brief, and Superman probably wouldn't make these bug eyes. And again, you can probably find the clip online, but it's embarrassing. This is just another note, but Superman getting demeaned by several characters in this movie, and also, again, getting humiliated in fights, like getting kicked in the nuts, reminded me of another superhero movie, 2008's The Spirit. I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but you might know what I'm talking about when I'm beginning to talk about this, but there's two scenes that reminded me of it. One was where Samuel L. Jackson, who is the main villain, hits the Spirit over the head with a toilet, and he goes, "Toilets are funny," which, you know, is just a weird line to say. And then the other one was when the Spirit was climbing up the wall and his trousers come down for some strange reason, and he is wearing a pair of comical boxers, and everyone laughs and makes fun of him. Because when I saw that scene of Superman getting kicked in the nards, like Monster Squad style, and him falling back down to Earth, there was a part of me that was laughing at him, not with him, and I wasn't concerned. So if that's the route that James Gunn and the rest of the people that enjoy this movie want to take, cool. But to me, that's not Superman. Not only that, but I've read where they've depowered Superman, that throughout the entire movie, he never really does anything heroic. He always needs to be saved, whether it's by the Justice Society, Krypto. I think I read where Lois Lane even saves him. And it's like, I'm not asking for a super all-powerful Superman, but it's like, how is the Superman going to survive in this universe when there's bigger baddies on the horizon? Like, how is he going to deal with Darkseid? Darkseid will smoke him in 10 seconds if this is the same Superman that we're going to be given that's going to fight Darkseid. And yeah, I've read where there is no heroic moment for this Superman. All the reviews online, even the people that liked it, were like, I liked it, but there was never any heroic or triumphant moment with Superman. There was never anything for me to be like, yeah, with. This is one of my biggest problems, is that I read that the movie starts with an opening narration. Now, opening narration can be good. It can be a good tool when used correctly. And people were saying, oh, this is an homage to Star Wars and everything like that. I don't think it is. Because Star Wars, that opening crawl in Star Wars is a throwback to the adventure serials of the 1930s and 40s that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas grew up with. You know, it's how the ideas for Star Wars and Indiana Jones sprouted, were because of those adventure serials like Flash Gordon. But here, I think it's just used as lazy writing, because the opening crawl says like metahumans have existed for 300 years, and 3 years ago, Superman made his appearance on Earth, and then the first scene is of Superman plowing into the snow after getting beat for apparently the first time. That doesn't really scream heroism to me. It, again, just screams lazy writing. Because here's what should have happened. It should have been something with like, you can have the opening crawl, but do it like, you know, 300 years ago, metahumans made their first appearance, but 3 years ago, Superman made his, you know, debuted himself to the world, and then have a montage of Superman doing heroic things, saving people, community service, just doing Superman-like things. Don't do this thing where I feel like the director should have just come into the audience and handed out a pamphlet to people. And I have to reiterate this, that the media blitz of what happened is probably one of the worst movie campaigns I've ever seen, because it didn't excite me at all. That 5-minute sequence, because I went to go see the Minecraft movie a few months ago, and I sat there and they aired that 5-minute sequence that was supposed to impress me, and instead it's Superman falling in the snow and then Krypto jumping on him and hurting him even more, then him getting dragged back to the Fortress of Solitude, where his robots have to help him. They put him in this chair where he writhes in pain as this heroic music is playing. So already I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, the sun is supposed to be helping him and everything like that, but it doesn't, the tone is completely, the music doesn't mix with the scene. And then it's, you know, the logo of Superman. Yay, Superman? That doesn't scream Superman to me. Again, there should have been a 5-minute scene or whatever like that where Superman saves the day in the end, and I think that would have gotten people's attention. And James Gunn's writing needs to mature, because Nathan Fillion came out recently saying that in the new Lantern series, he's gonna say the F word. He's gonna say the F word. What is it, 2003? That's like edge humor that I thought was cool back when I was a kid. Seriously, like, he writes for 14 and 16-year-olds. You have to get other writers in your room. And a lot of people were saying that they're afraid of what James Gunn might do if he gets his hands on Batman. That's all I can say. To wrap this up, a lot of reviews have been saying that this is the Superman that we need right now. Well, from what I've seen and what I've read, this may not be the Superman that we need, but it's the Superman that we deserve. Because seriously, look at who's running the country and everything. I mean, you can't get much more obvious than that. So there it is. There's my rant. I just wanted to get all of this off of my chest. Thanks for watching.